Greetings to all of those here. Today I've got a message, and it's going to take a few different studies to go ahead and really delve into this subject. And the subject is who truly is Babylon according to the Scriptures. Who is Babylon, the mother whore of Revelation 17 and 18? But before we get into that, I must go ahead and say a few things. Because of this subject, it is going to be very hard for some to digest. It will be hard for those who, when they hear of who this great whore that is whored with the world truly is, and because of that, and because of the fact that I don't want to be labeled as an anti-Semite, I must state a few things. That first, my wife, my family, and I have been in Israel, living in and out of Israel for almost 9 years, since approximately the summer of 2002. We've spent a considerable amount of time there, up through the Golan, from Jerusalem all the way up to Givat Yuav, one of the moshavs, up through the Golan Heights. We've spoken to many Jews about the land covenant and how important it is to not give in to the pressures of America or the EU or any other nation for that matter to divide the land that was given to the sons of Israel to the Palestinians or any other people. It was not given to them. And we spent tens of thousands of dollars on travel, food, anything that you can think of to live there. It is the desire of my family to be in Israel, the land of our father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not a day goes by that my daughters do not cry that they wish that they could go home after spending all those years, most of their life, in fact, in that land, in that nation, in that country. And so I want to come clean that I am not an anti-Semite, but as the prophets of old had a message to speak, the words of Yahweh, they probably would have been labeled anti-Semites as well, even coming and being born from among the Jews and the peoples of Israel. So today's message is going to be hard, but it's something that nevertheless needs to be spoken. So let's go ahead and pick this right up of who Babylon, the mother whore, the great harlot of Revelation 17 and 18 is. And we need to start with her birth. Let's go ahead and go to Ezekiel chapter 16. Ezekiel chapter 16, and I'm going to start in verse 1. It says, "And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, make known to Jerusalem her abomination." So we know very clearly who this is speaking to. It's speaking of the abominations that Jerusalem is performing. "And say, Thus says the Master Yahweh to Jerusalem, Your origins, your birth, are from the land of Canaan. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite." And this is exactly what it says in Jeremiah chapter 50. "Your mother, whom is sorely confounded," speaks of. Well, who was your mother and who's your father? Well, it says your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite. Let's go ahead and go to Deuteronomy chapter 26. Deuteronomy chapter 26, and we will begin in verse 1. I'll begin in verse 1, read through verse 5. "And shall be," Deuteronomy 26, "when you come into the land which Yahweh your Elohim has given you as an inheritance, that ye shall possess it and dwell in it. That you shall take some of the first of all the first fruits of the soil which you bring from the land that Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. And you shall put it in a basket and go to the place, Jerusalem," which Second Chronicles 6:6 and 1 Kings states, "where Yahweh your Elohim shall choose to make his name dwell. And you shall come to the one who is priest in those days, and say to him, I shall declare today to Yahweh your Elohim that I have come to the land which Yahweh swore to our fathers to give us. And the priest shall take the basket from your hand and place it before the altar of Yahweh your Elohim. Verse 5. And you shall answer and say this before Yahweh your Elohim. And here we go. My father was a perishing Aramean, and that word is Amorite. My father was a perishing Amorite. He went down into Egypt. Did Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all go down into Egypt? Scripturally, it says yes, they did. And if anyone would like, I have a study that I can pass along to you. It's entitled The Years of Slavery. Scripture says that or at least people presume that Scripture says that Israel, the 12 nations, the 12 sons of Jacob, not just the fourth, Judah and Gentiles, but all the sons of Israel, according to Genesis 49, were in the land of Egypt. They were not in Egypt for 430 years. And I have a study that I can show that shows that they were sojourners for that period of time. Not in abject or subjected to the slavery of the Egyptians for that period of time. It's just biblically inaccurate. So if you would like that study, just go ahead and at the end of today, I will go ahead and pass out an email that I will send it to you. And it's very simple, scripturally very provable. Verse 5, and he says, you shall answer, my father was a perishing Aramean. He was an Amorite. And he went down to Egypt and sojourned there with a few men. And we know that was 70, including the extra sons that Stephen quotes in Acts. He says there's 75. Well, according to the Septuagint, Stephen is quoting the sons of Ephraim and the extra sons of Manasseh in that lineage. A lot of people don't understand. They think that there's a contradiction in the Scriptures, and we know that there's not. Yahweh does not mix his words. So we know that according to this, there shows that there was a few men, 75, including the sons of Joseph, and they became there in Egypt a great nation, mighty and very numerous. So according to Ezekiel 16, beginning in the first few verses, we show that the lineage or the birth of Jerusalem, Israel, was an Aramean or an Amorite, which means Abraham, our father Abraham, was an Amorite. He came from the land of the Chaldeans, Iraq. He came from the city of Ur. He was an Amorite, and is very provable through historical and archaeological facts. So that makes the mother one of two possibilities: Sarah and or the sons of Israel who took wives from Shechem after they destroyed Levi and Simeon, according to Scripture, killed the sons of Shechem, but they left the women. It's believed that the sons of Israel took the wives or the daughters of Shechem, which were Hittites, and intermarried with them and brought them down with them into Egypt. So it says that they became a great nation. In Ezekiel, continuing Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 4, it says, as for your birth, on the day that you were born, your navel cord was not cut, nor were you washed in water for cleansing, and you were not rubbed with salt at all, nor wrapped in cloth at all. No eye felt pity for you to do any of these things to you, to have compassion on you, but you were thrown out into the open field to the loathing of your life on the day you were born. Israel was thrown out into the wilderness when they came out of Egypt. They were thrown out. Yahweh kicked them out. He allowed them to leave. Then I passed by you and saw that you were trampled down in your blood. And I said to you, blood, live. And I said to your blood, live. Verse 7, I have let you grow like a plant in the field, and you were grown and became great, and you came into the finest of ornaments. Breasts were formed, your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. Again I passed by you, and I looked upon you, and saw that the time was upon you, the time of love. And I spread my skirt. That word in the Strong's Concordance in Hebrew is kanaf. It literally means his skirt, or the edge of his feathers, or the cloak. So he spread his skirt over you, almost like in the Jewish weddings, you will see the huppah, the covering over them. Yahweh covered Israel in the wilderness. I covered you in your nakedness, and I swore an oath to you. Yahweh went into an oath and a covenant with Israel in the wilderness. And you became mine, declares the Master Yahweh. And I washed you in water, and I washed your blood off of you, and I anointed you with oil. Let's go ahead and stop there for a moment. Now, what's this covenant that we read about that he went into, verse 8, with Israel? Well, if we go back to Exodus chapter 19, we will read the covenant that Yahweh was going into with the whole house of Israel, not just one tribe, but all the tribes of Israel, including Ephraim, or a total of 13 tribes. The covenant that he was going into are the words that he spoke to the children of Israel. He spoke these words. This book that we have, which we call the law or the Torah of Moses, is the covenant to the children of Israel and Yahweh. Literally a marriage covenant. And as we read in the 3rd month after the children of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, Exodus 19, verse 1, on this day they came to the wilderness of Sinai. Verse 4, he says, have you seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and I brought you to myself? And now, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be a treasured possession above all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel. So Yahweh told Moses. Moses was the mediator. He brought these words to Israel. And we read in verse 8, and all the people answered with one voice, all that Yahweh has spoken, we do. As a whole, it was we do, not I do, like you would hear in a marriage covenant or a contract between a man and a woman today, between the minister or the preacher. They would say, I do, singular. But here, as a nation or a people of Israel, possibly 1.5 up to 3 million people, they said as a whole, we do. As a nation, we will keep this marriage contract. If we continue in chapter 24, we will see again that this contract was a marriage contract, and some people have tried to explain away that this was not a complete contract, or a complete marriage, that there was no wedding supper, and that there was no blood that was spilled. And we know that in the book of Leviticus and other places that the bride of Israel, the daughter of Israel, had to be a virgin, or she was in serious danger. She was in a life-threatening situation if she was not pure on the day of her wedding. And her parents would keep a cloth or the sheet with the tokens of her virginity, literally the blood that was spilled. And in chapter 24 of Exodus, pick up in verse 3, and Moses came and related all the words which Yahweh had spoken and his judgments. And the people all said with one voice, all the words which Yahweh has spoken, we do. This is time number 2. And Moses wrote down all the words of Yahweh, and rose up early in the morning, and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 standing columns for the 12 tribes of Israel.
And he sent young men, the children of Israel, and they offered burnt offerings